Goodwill behavior that causes you to look lost. Maybe you mean too well. You are a very kind person, you help the people around you to help in some way. But somehow you think you don't get the respect you deserve even though you try so hard? Here you go through the biggest trouble that kind people, thin people go through. Unfortunately, today's world does not respect polite people, thin people very much. Some of the behaviors we do, that we do for the sake of other people, can be interpreted as a crush in the world system, especially in that dominant world system. Although it is done in a good way, the first act that is interpreted by other people as a crush is to apologize too much. Maybe you are too afraid of hurting other people. Please don't hurt anyone from me, don't even break anyone's heart, you think. But unfortunately, this is not perceived as such from the outside. If you're a person who apologizes 20 to 30 times a day, walking around with a sign that says "I'm almost sorry for the inconvenience I caused," then of course, in a figurative sense, here are other people, because you don't have self-confidence and I won't trust you either. Maybe they realize that you don't deserve respect, maybe they think unconsciously. Afterwards, when you apologize so much, it can even be made into a subject to be ridiculed by some people. Please don't apologize unnecessarily, unless what you did was really a bad thing, if you really didn't hurt someone. Every apology you make unnecessarily will take away a piece of your dignity and cause you to be perceived as a loser. We face many problems during the day. Many people can ask us questions. We may have to explain some things in some way, but the ratio of the words we use here is so important that you have to explain something like this. Someone said to you, I'll even give you a very simple example. Someone on the way asked you for an address. You somehow explained it in 3 to 5 reasonable sentences. There is no problem here. But when you sit down and try to explain a subject with 30 to 40 sentences and 50 sentences, people interpret it as weakness, people interpret it as incompetence and inexperience. In your business life, in your school life, as I said, you need to use the ideal level that you can explain. Explaining too much, talking too much, constantly explaining yourself in a way, will be interpreted as weakness from the other side. Why? Because it says people's mental mechanisms, sometimes the person is not even aware of it. If you're explaining that much, this person probably doesn't believe in himself or what he's saying, why should I believe him? Therefore, it is useful to reduce the unnecessary words of the words we use a little bit. I think what we call self-sacrifice is one of the most beautiful virtues in the world, but if a person makes a lot of sacrifices to the people around him, if he makes sacrifices even to those who harm him, without distinguishing good or bad, if he continues to make those who use him, then this situation arises. You know how you are perceived by others. You may be doing all this with serious effort, but the man outside thinks, if I'm revealing it unintentionally, there's much more to it than that. That's why those precious stones that you put forth, maybe you plucked them from the deep inside rather than from one place and exposed them by suffering. It treats it like the pebble, you know. That's why you have to make sacrifices for those who deserve it. If the person in front of you is a malicious person, if the person in front of you is using you, making unnecessary sacrifices will cause that person, those people, to use you. When someone compliments you, says something nice, or compliments you, can't you just accept that compliment? Are you making too many statements to somehow dismiss or somehow devalue this situation? Unfortunately, this situation is interpreted as laziness in the real world. Maybe you think you're humble, maybe you think you're doing good, but unfortunately the real world doesn't interpret it that way. Let's say someone liked your outfit, liked your hair. Ah, how beautiful that outfit says to you. You immediately enter the explanation. You say either I bought it from the market for $30 or you had your hair done. She says she's beautiful. You say right away, oh well, that's how it came to me, so I made it. You are showing a good success, you are putting forward a good thesis. When someone praised you, it happened because our teacher suggested it. If you never accept praise, people will think after a while that you really don't deserve it. So if someone is praising you, please accept it. Some people don't want to do anything alone. He always wants someone to be by his side, even in things that sometimes come very easily. He will go to the hospital or he will go to the hairdresser somehow. He will go to the cinema. Will apply for a job. He always wants someone to be with him. Of course, in some situations it is natural not to want to be alone. But if you always need someone, after a while it's like people aren't mature enough to do anything with you alone. Interprets it as an immature person. One of the most important conditions for a person to be perceived as strong is to be able to do something alone without other people. If you can do this, you look strong, you appear as a more respected person. Maybe you complain about everything because you want attention, you are always whiny, you constantly complain to people about every problem in your life. Think about your relationship with the people around you, your conversations. If the content of these conversations always consists of you complaining about something, if your conversations with people always consist of conversations where you worry about your life, your lover, your wife, your job, your money situation, after a while people start to get bored of your chat too. Somehow, he starts to get bored of you, and he starts to stay away from you. Putting someone at the center of your life, especially in romantic relationships, is a very difficult situation. I see a situation like this in women and sometimes in men. Someone will come into my life and after that everything in my life will be complete, somehow I myself will be complete after that. Unfortunately, this is not realistic. You exist with yourself, you exist as an individual. Of course, the relationships you establish socially and romantic relationships will enrich your soul. But you know what happens if you're always dependent on someone else for your own existence? As I said before, people get bored of you again, and people who are dependent, people who put other people at the center of their lives, are afraid of being abandoned. However, they overwhelm and cling to those people so much that unfortunately most of the time, what they fear happens to them. You, as an individual, have to accept your own existence. Of course, we need other people. But other people should never be indispensable to you, okay? There's a saying I always say. If you've been following me before, maybe you've heard my saying, if you're an angel, the sound of wings will be bothered by you. Whatever you do, devote everything you can to pleasing other people, yet some of the people, even a lot of kindness, some of the people you do will criticize you. But if you collapse in the face of the criticism you receive, if you constantly try to prove yourself, if you try to explain yourself, this prevents you from being a respectable person. Unfortunately, people still don't respect you. Unfortunately, the more successful you are, the more criticism you will receive, the more negative comments will come. Sometimes it is necessary to meet these with maturity, but if you give an answer to every criticism, if you try to raise an answer even for a person who is not in your lane or class, you will see that you are falling into the quality of the person you are responding to. That's why you really need to respond to the criticisms of the people who really benefit from being in contact with that person. You need to listen to the criticisms of those people. But if you have an answer for every word, after a while you will realize that people do not respect you as much as they used to. Man, I said, is an individual being. Sometimes he has to make his own decisions. But if you always get the approval of the people around you in every step you take, in every job you do, maybe even in a shoe or a sock, people start to disrespect you again, because something like this occurs in their minds. Behan can't do anything by himself. This means that Behan is somehow either not a very intelligent person or somehow not a person who has the power to manage his life. If you don't want to create it, you have to do something on your own. Of course, sometimes you make mistakes, sometimes things don't go your way, but that's part of life. Very, very natural. Don't be afraid to do something on your own. It's okay to get approval once in a while, but it's a nuisance if it comes to the center of your life. Well, my dear friend, have you experienced behaviors that you normally have very good intentions in your daily life, which are misunderstood by other people or interpreted as inferiority? Did you experience it somehow? You can share them with us in the comments section. Thank you for listening to me, beautiful person. Treat yourself very well. See you soon. Me ex-manager.